Hello, good evening, everybody. Good evening. I have a little while, just a little drive to get home. So I wanted to um, come and talk to you guys really quick about some of the things. I have not had the chance to look at anyone to get like an overall daily update, but I did get a chance to look at some people, talk about the opening statements, and talk about the surveillance video, right? And also to give us more details as to the description of what was taking place that day, right? So first I want to say this. I came to y'all this morning, right? And because I was bothered last night, my spirit was disturbed last night. Because I was like, I cannot believe me and my girl Queen Keish and Amila, we are not agreeing on this. And it was disturbing my spirit. And then I felt like I was wrong for a minute. I was letting that thing vex my spirit. And that was not nothing but Satan telling me that. Because what I said is exactly what was confirmed through opening statements today. Okay, exactly what I said. It was also confirmed through police reports. And when I listened to AV read the police reports, because she's actually I heard the one police report, but I didn't know there were so many multiple police reports. And so a lot of the reporting I was hearing was coming from these police reports and the things that I stated. So what I mentioned about the weather, this morning, I guess the reason why it was rain delays is because it was raining. And I don't know if the rain was intermittent or not, because at some periods they had expressed that it started coming down harder than other times. And they were discussing that in relation to when they were trying to collect evidence from the crime scene. This was in some of the police reporting. However, it was raining. And I was correct in saying that these were canopy tents. You said I'm still with you, sis. I was introduced. Okay, all right. I just got because I'm like we here. We see it eye to eye. We ain't too far off. We might venture a little bit, but we normally see it eye to eye, right? So these were canopy tents, and what was discovered today in the process of opening statements was that there was no tent for Karmelo's school. So to me, this says something even more than what I initially implied, right? Because it would have been one thing if it would have been a tent that he could have tried to find shelter under and quickly run to, right? But there was no tent. It was stated that his school was the only school that they did not have a tent for. In the surveillance video, it was mentioned, and I believe it was by the prosecution in their opening statements, um, that he bypassed another tent, right, in order to go into this tent where Austin and his brother and his other classmates were in, right? But Neek reported, and she said that on the video, from what she could see, the tent that he bypassed was crowded. Everybody was scrunched up because it's only a canopy tent. Now, for those of us who are sports moms, we know those canopy tents are not that big. You said, yes, that was an important fact that his school, exactly, his school didn't have a tent. And then that, for the prosecution to try to put emphasis on the fact that he bypassed a tent to go over to the tent where Austin was, as if it was some type of motive behind doing that. But Neek is saying that she can visibly see in the video that the tent that they are describing that he bypassed, that it was jam packed, that people were scrunched together trying to seek shelter from the rain. And so the tent where I guess where Justin was packed. In addition to that, it was stated that the reason that he decided to also run over to that tent was because he noticed someone that he knew, someone who he saw as a friend. Apparently, I think there is going to possibly be some testimony that is going to challenge um, the that's going to challenge that relationship, because the defense kind of in their opening statements laid the foundation to say someone he thought was a friend. So I don't know if that idea changes and that trajectory changed because after the event took place, and then if it was no longer discovered this was really a friend, because it was a classmate of Austin's in the tent, but it was someone that Karmelo knew and he was familiar with, and he saw a familiar face, and so he went there, I guess, in order to greet that individual. So, in addition to the rain, in addition to him bypassing the tent that was jam packed like sardines that he bypassed, he goes there as well because he sees someone there that he knows. So, he goes there to seek refuge underneath the tent while it's pouring down raining because of the rain delay and them getting started with the track meet. Okay? So, this brings me to this. So last night we already talked about everything with the knife. Exactly what we talked about on day one of jury selection is exactly how this case is going. We are doing an excellent job at looking at this case, you guys. When one of the things that I wanted to highlight, and when I get in, I'm going to listen to whoever is going live to give a recap for the whole day, right? Because like I said, I listen to the lunchtime recaps, so I'm sure more things happened, and so I'm going to listen to that later, okay? But I wanted to come and discuss the fact and the conversation around the duty not to retreat, right? Because this is something that Queen Sheba was talking about on her live when she was talking about this case. And she was saying that the defense was putting a lot of emphasis to the jurors. This was doing jury selection still at the end of yesterday, because we're kind of in between 2 days. So we're kind of in reporting. So we're in between the completion of jury selection yesterday and then the opening statements and the surveillance video footage being released. That was prior to lunch, and then I'm waiting for the after lunch updates, right? So the defense attorney placed an emphasis to the jurors that an individual does not have the duty to retreat. And that is important when looking at this case, because a lot of people are putting all of the burden on to on to Karmelo, that he should have just walked away and he should have just chose the higher road. But and the reason, it's multiple reasons why I think people are putting this on to Karmelo. Multiple reasons. But we are not going to not give blame to the victim in this case, because he had a duty to not cause and incite a situation in an extenuating circumstance. It is pouring down raining. What person that is taught well by their family would demand that during the pouring down rain, someone get from underneath their tent because they're not part of their team, because they're not from their school? That is the question that the opposing side could pose. And I'm not saying that he doesn't come from a good family. But what I'm saying is that it is the question that could be asked. What person who is taught well, who has good home training, who is kind and considerate to others, would demand for someone to leave the tent during pouring down rain? And this is what it amounts to. Because there were lots of questions that were asked during jury duty. And I was listening attentively so that I can tie this in. What it amounts to is the fact that there is still an overwhelming idea that white people, and I have to say it like this, I'm not talking to all white people. I have white friends, and I'm not talking to all white people. But it is an overwhelming idea that white people have the right to trespass on black bodies, and black bodies should not respond to it. This is evident. It is evident And a lot of the things and a lot of the questioning that was um, um, with the jury, a lot of the questioning that the defense had for the jury, in order to try to find out who has biases, who has prejudices, who is racist. Many of the people were wondering why the defense attorney asked a question about how these jurors felt about the immigration policy. And they felt like that question was not beneficial. Some people felt like it wasn't beneficial. They felt like it had nothing to do with the trial. It had absolutely everything to do with this trial. Because how people feel, the Trump administration immigration policy is extremely aggressive towards black and brown people. And so that question and how they feel about the current state of affairs, about immigration policy, will give you a key indication to the biases, prejudices, and racism that these jurors may, or potential jurors may possess. It was a great question to ask because it gave great insight as to if you are pleased. The defense attorney asked on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being displeased, and then 10 being overwhelmingly pleased. How would you rate the current state of our immigration policy? And there were many jurors who were above a 6. And there were many jurors who didn't want to answer the question because they said, well, we need to know more information. There were many jurors that were confused. Why are you asking this question? We're asking the questions. Those of us with reasonable minds know that the Trump administration immigration policy is biased towards and aggressive towards black and brown people. They are not going and apprehending European immigrants. They are profiling in order to go after black and brown people. And so this question gave the defense some insight as to who they may not want on the jury because they are so pleased with the current state of our immigration policies that they don't care that it is violating black and brown bodies. And this is why they will be okay with Justin violating Karmelo's black body. And the reason why people don't want to come to that conclusion is because instead of Karmelo being the one who isn't here anymore, it is Austin that's not here anymore. That's why they don't want to consider it. I thought that between the questions, there were lots of other questions that were asked to the jury that I thought were very good questions to ask. Like I said, questions about the knife, questions about the defense attorney asked questions about the potential of lesser includeds being added, and what would the jury be willing, and what is the lowest sentence that the jury will be willing to give, and what is the lowest sentence? Because if lesser included are added and they agree to a verdict of manslaughter, this is where where the 2 years comes from. That is where the 2 years comes from. So this is why that question was asked. You probably heard that question yesterday. I hadn't heard that yet. And so when you said something about the 2 years, that's why because I'm like, I know that the state is asking for, I think, like 20 years or something like that, or it might be upwards even more than that. But the reason why is because the defense attorney asked the question, considering that the lesser included may be added, and if they are added, then the jurors will have an opportunity to be able to render a verdict on a lesser charge. And in that event, what is the lowest sentence that they would be willing, that they would think was reasonable to give? Because the lowest sentence could end up in a situation of probation. And so the defense attorney wanted to know how the jurors felt about that. The defense attorney wanted to know, most of them, they were not okay with that. Hey, Jaspi, hey, boom. Most of the jurors were not okay with giving Karmelo less than 2 years. But most of them were definitely not okay with giving him a life sentence for what took place. And most of them thought that 5 years would be reasonable. So I think we might be in a pretty reasonable space with the jury. Now, what the public thinks and what those people who who were dismissed, that's another thing. But based on the jurors that were selected, we may be in a reasonable space. I still don't like this idea of those lesser included, like I said this morning, because even though I do believe that it is possible that he is guilty of a charge of a lower degree, I am pissed at the fact that this prosecutor went this far with this overzealous prosecution, and that would make me, I would begrudgingly give a guilty verdict on the lesser charge because of it. I would begrudgingly do it. Like I would have to follow the law when it came to the evidence if I did not feel that the defense put on enough to give us the intent in Karmelo's thinking of while he's cross-examining these witnesses, because it looks like Karmelo might not be testifying, possibly. That's what the experts think. I don't mean no harm, y'all, but I will listen, if I was that boy's attorney, I ain't nobody's attorney, but let me tell you something. If I was that boy's attorney, I would put that boy on the fucking stand. I would put him on the stand. I would have prepped his ass good as shit. Because it's a lot of women. It's a lot of women on the jury. Even though people are looking at it like, because that was the issue. The issue that a lot of the jurors and people were saying was that he looks like a baby. He's too young. We cannot put this boy in jail for the rest of his life. So there are a lot of women on the jury, right? And I think it was satisfied because another question that was asked, you said I honestly didn't know much about this case, so I'll lean on you with this one. Yeah, I knew about it, but I wanted to wait until because it was not a lot being released. It was, so a gag order was issued on this case, Just B, and everything was sealed. So everything we are seeing it for the first time. I only knew of the one police report, and apparently the other reporting I was hearing was coming from multiple police reports, because AV this morning, she read the additional police reports. So there were multiple police officers that were on site at the time, and she read through those police reports, and tidbits of everything that I heard was in the various police reports. And so, yeah, this is an interesting case. It is a very interesting case. I would put that boy on the stand. I know it's up to him in the end, but if I was I don't know what his legal team has advised him, because they can't say if they advised him or not. You know what I'm saying? And this one of the jurors asked that question. Well, are you going to be able to tell us? I don't know who asked this shit. Probably the same damn person who think that the Civil War was when we won America. That's probably the same people who asked this shit, because I can't see nobody asking this damn question. Somebody asked, what was I about to say? I forgot the question now. Somebody asked the question, will the defense attorney be able to tell the jurors if he advised Karmelo not to testify, or will they not be able to share that information with the jury? And the defense attorney just was like, no, unfortunately, we cannot tell you that. Now, come on, who don't know that? Who don't know that they can never tell whether they advise them or not? That the decision, it has to be made by the defendant. They cannot tell this shit. You said you a lawyer or no, I'm saying the same juror who asked the question about will the defense attorney be able to tell the jury if they told Karmelo not to testify, they probably the same type of person that think that the Civil War was when we became Americans, when we won America, when we beat the Europeans. That's probably the same kind of person, because who don't know? That is like basics. That is the basics of courtroom rules, etiquette, proceedings. Like, you know that the defense attorney can't tell no jury if they advise their client to testify or not. No. So today was day one. So today they finished jury selection yesterday evening. They did opening statements this morning, and then this morning they had whatever expert expert that they had come on the stand go over the surveillance video. And that's the part that I got in their lunch break. So tonight I'm going to be watching in order for to get the additional updates. I don't know if it was their lunch break or they were just on a regular break, but they came out to discuss the surveillance video. And so the surveillance video was not very clear, but they were able to, it was clear enough. And then I think they are supposed to be, because something about it recorded in 4K or something, whatever the surveillance system that they use. And so the television that was in the courtroom was not 4K. And so the expert explained like how sometimes then that makes it like more difficult to see. So they're supposed to bring in a TV, a 4K TV, I guess, to show it to the jury again, to see, maybe make it a little bit clearer, the video a little clearer for them. You said, my dear sweet caller, you still not accepting the kind of people we are dealing with in this world. Listen, I am accepting it. I'm saying, what in the hell? Like, you gotta be one of them people who think that about the Civil War, that ask the question about the defense attorney being able to tell you as a jury member if he told his client to testify or not. Like, that is crazy. But I'm telling you, if it was me, especially after hearing overwhelmingly a lot of those women express that they would understand him not testifying because of different things, let me tell you, I would have that boy testify and I would have him put on the waterworks. Because this is the thing, one of the police reports, all of the other police reports left this part out. All of the other police reports did not describe this in their police report, but it is one police officer that said when he arrived on the scene, the defendant or the assailant was screaming and crying hysterically. It says it. All of the other police reports, they mentioned what he said, what he asked, asking about it was self-defense, and they're trying to really play up that like he's asking that question because he's already in his mind trying to prepare a defense. Who the fuck wouldn't? When you killed somebody and you didn't mean to do it, and you know that you felt like you was just defending yourself, who wouldn't be? He's a black boy in Texas. He knows he's going to jail. He knows that he's going to jail. Who that would be, I mean, for some excited. So AV talked about excited utterances, right? And how his attorneys can create a defense for that type of statements. They were voluntary statements. They weren't statements that law enforcement questioned him about. He voluntarily said some statements, but AV talked about excited utterances and how the attorneys can create some defense for that. And so I just feel like that, to me, that is a reasonable thing on the break. He was also asking questions about, is he okay? Is he going to be okay? But this only one officer documented that when he arrived on the scene, that the defendant was screaming, crying, hysterical. Now, why didn't any of the other officers document that? Why did it only come from one? I'm interested to see I'm interested on the details on that one. I'm very interested to see what they are. But yes, I wanted to come and just briefly go through that with you guys. It was right about the rain. Now, Tears did say something. I did hear something about the coach told him to go under that tent. Maybe that is part of it too, because maybe the coach told him to go under someone else's tent while they were waiting while it was raining, and maybe that's where they came from. Because now we are aware that his school was the only school with no tent. So maybe he did get directions from his coach to go to another tent. So all of that that we heard is very well possible. It's very well possible that all of those things happened all simultaneously, all at the same time. But the main thing is that it was pouring down raining. that the tent that he bypassed was jam-packed like sardines. He saw a familiar face in the tent where Austin and his teammates were. He thought that that person was friendly towards him. He went over there to go greet that person. Then, shortly 2 minutes after him getting into the tent, then this altercation ensues. And somehow, there are some people who believe that it was the duty of Karmelo to retreat and just walk away. Just stand in the rain. Just walk away. Because you should just avoid the conflict. Why would you escalate? If he told you to leave, just leave. Why would you escalate it? And this lets us know that all of these people think that the people who think that, they believe that white people have the right to still trespass black people's bodies and not be accountable for it. But when a black person goes to defend their body being trespassed, then they are held accountable for it. That is the thinking of many of those jury members who are saying that they felt that Karmelo had the duty to retreat, even though the law says he didn't have the duty to retreat. So this is going to be very interesting as it unfolds. Now, because the jury has kind of been prepped for those lesser included, I'm not convinced that we're not getting a not guilty verdict somewhere. We're going to get, because I don't think, especially with the questions that were asked to most of the jurors, and they said that they wouldn't be comfortable with anything under 2 years, I think we're going to get to a guilty verdict, because I think that they could make a case. Even though I believe that it was self-defense, I believe the intent behind why Karmelo is saying that he did what he did and why he reacted the way that he did. But I don't know if this jury, I believe this jury doesn't have what it takes to give him a first-degree murder charge, but I think that it's going to be a guilty on a lesser included charge. I do think we're going to get that. That's just my prediction now. So I just wanted to come talk to you guys really quick about that, give y'all that really quick update. I'm about to go in here. I gotta run into the store to go grab a couple of things, and then I'm gonna go in the house. I'm gonna listen to some additional updates for the evening, and if I can, I will come back online to discuss them with you guys. If not, then we will reconvene tomorrow and have more discussion. There will be Saturday court, at least this Saturday. I don't know if it's going to be for the duration of the trial. They said that there are a lot of teens, young adults, that will be testifying in this case, because predominantly that's who witnessed this. And overwhelmingly, they are people who were friends with the victim. So the defense team already prepared the jurors for that. And the defense team, one of the questions that he asked was, if you're going to notice that I have to aggressively question these witnesses, right, in order to defend my client. And so he asked the question that if and they're going to look young, because just like people have some sympathy for Karmelo because Karmelo looks young, right? There are people who are going to feel like, why is he badgering these kids like this? And so he asked the question, if you have a problem or take issue with the way that I cross-examine these witnesses, will you take it out on Karmelo? He asked that question to the potential jurors. And so some of them did say yes, they would. Some of them said they would. But a lot of them said no, they wouldn't. They would understand. And so the ones I think that said that they would, they got rid of them. They was gone. And but yeah, some of them said that they would have held it against the attorney for the style of cross-examination against these teenagers, young adults. And that, I think, is a lot of them, because according to the police report, one of the police reports said that there were people walking into the police station to make reports. So they didn't even need to go and locate anyone. They walked in. But one of the things about most of the statements that I heard being taken overwhelmingly say that Austin placed his hands onto Karmelo. But despite that, these people still believe that Karmelo should have been the bigger person and should have just walked away. He should have taken the fact that he was assaulted, because when you put your hands on somebody, that is assault. So he should have just taken the fact that he was assaulted, walked away, and or potentially he might have been the one that could have been either severely hurt or um or maybe not here, because even in a physical altercation where there are no weapons, things can happen in a physical altercation that could then cause someone to pass away. And if you are afraid and you are thinking these two big boys, they were much bigger in stature to him, then that might be a response. That's a proper response. Even though everybody doesn't agree with his response, it is a proper response. And I think it is enough to meet the burden of a self-defense. Unfortunately, I think because they are already prepping the jury for lesser included, I believe this jury is in Texas. I think it's going to be a guilty on something. So we have to wait and see, y'all. We got to wait and see how much more information that we get. But I wanted to come back to you guys and talk to you about those things and I wanted to speak to Queen Keish and Miller, because we was going there to tussle last night. And I was just like, what is going on? And then I was feeling bad. And then I was like, okay, well, how could I get to a first degree on this case? You know, and I sat and thought about it. And what I said this morning is the only way. But it doesn't look like that the prosecution has any evidence headed in that direction. So thankfully, I don't have to worry about that, because it doesn't look like any of the evidence that the prosecutors have is going in the direction that I described this morning in my morning live of how we would get to a first degree murder charge. But with the preparation for those lesser included to be added, I think we get something. And I know it is going to set a fire. It is going to set a blaze, because people are going to look at all of the times that individuals got off for doing more. And this is going to cause it's going to be a major point of contention when it happens. But I am predicting that it will be. Now, the other thing, really quick before I get off, so Karmelo had a option to either be sentenced by the jury or to be sentenced by the judge. Y'all, he took being sentenced by the jury. I don't know. I think he should have let that judge sentence him. I'm sorry. I don't agree with that, but that's their choices. It's a gamble either way. But he decided to go with the jury sentencing him, and so the judge is just a presider at this point. He's just a presider over the proceedings, because the jury will render the verdict and the jury will administer the sentence, the punishment, and if he's guilty. And so that's all I think I have right now for the update. I don't think I have any little last minute. You said I'd have went with the judge. Yeah, I would have went with the judge, because like I said, I don't think they get to a first degree murder. I don't think they get there. So I would have went with the judge sentencing, because I feel like he's probably going to get convicted on whatever the lowest degree of the charge is. And I would have probably went with what the judge had to do. The judge has been pretty fair when sentencing veterans. He is who have committed crimes. He's talked about looking at the overall record of an individual and making a decision, and not just from one moment or one instance in their life. There are people who are skeptical about the judge because of how harshly he's run this court proceeding. I think it was necessary, considering the fact that a whole judge was doxxed for lowering Karmelo's bail to $250,000. They doxxed the judge who did that, and so I think this judge responded appropriately. But there are a lot of people who are scrutinizing for that. They scrutinize him for the fact that he's Republican and several other things. But I actually think, and they scrutinize him for how he's kind of like interacting with these people in this court. But I think he wants these people to know he's not playing with them. It's too much at stake. You got all of these teens, you got all of these young people who are going to be coming into this courtroom and having to testify. I think everything that he's done is try to make sure that his courtroom and around the courtroom stays as safe as possible, and that he lets these people know, if you do anything to violate my rules, you will be punished to the fullest extent that I can punish you. I think this is what is needed in order to create protections for not just everybody else, but for the defendant, to protect the defendant. The defendant had to be placed in an undisclosed location while out on bond, and the government had to assist with that. So I think these were the necessary things that he had to do in order for him to try to make sure he gets home at night, make sure everybody coming through his courtroom get home at night. He can't guarantee anything, but I think that he's done what needs to be done. And I think people are looking at his sternness when it comes to that, and the seriousness of how he runs his courtroom, and they are translating that to that he would possibly somehow be unfair. But I actually think I did a little look up on him. I did a little bit of research. He's been very lenient in situations. He I don't know if he was a judge, like when he was in the military, and this is when he was evaluating these individuals, but he tends to want to look at the record. And when we look at Carmelo Anthony's record from from his childhood to now, he was a exceptional student, an all-American athlete. Like that, he doesn't have a blemish on his record. And so I think that will hold some weight with this judge. I really do. That's it for you guys. I'm really getting off here now because I gotta go into the store, and then I gotta get me a shower. I gotta get me some food, and then while I'm doing all of that, I'm gonna be listening to the updates for today. If I have a chance to check back in with you guys tonight, I will. If not, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. You all have a great night. If I don't get to talk to you again, and I will be back with you guys soon.